Chapter 1. Dislocation. Jackson Kong woke before his alarm, as he usually did, to the grey half-light leaking through the blinds of his apartment. The city was already moving. Somewhere below, a delivery truck hissed to a stop. A horn sounded once, sharp and impatient, then faded. He lay still, staring at the ceiling fan, as it turned with a soft, uneven tick, its blades cutting the stale air in slow arcs. 30 years old, he thought. 30. And this was the shape of his life. The alarm went off anyway. 6:30, a clean digital chirp, and he reached over to silence it without looking. His phone screen lit up with notifications, overnight emails from the Singapore office, a calendar reminder for an 8:30 meeting, a news alert about market volatility in a sector he no longer cared about. He set the phone face down and swung his legs over the side of the bed. The apartment was neat in the way of someone who spent little time in it. Grey couch, glass coffee table, a single framed print on the wall that he had bought because the real estate agent said it made the place feel finished. The kitchen counter held a coffee maker, wiped clean every night, and nothing else. No photos, no clutter, no signs of anyone staying long enough to leave a mark. He showered, dressed, and tied his tie with practiced efficiency. Navy suit, white shirt. The tie was a muted charcoal, expensive without being flashy. He had learned over the years how to look exactly right without drawing attention. In the mirror, his face looked calm, even confident. Dark hair neatly cut, jawline sharp from years of grinding stress and too little sleep. His eyes, however, seemed distant, as if focused on something several feet behind his own reflection. Coffee tasted bitter. He drank it anyway. The commute was a familiar blur of concrete and glass. Jackson walked the 3 blocks to the parking garage, his shoes clicking in time with the crosswalk signals. He passed the same woman walking a small white dog, the same security guard leaning against a post and scrolling through his phone. None of them looked at him. He didn't expect them to. Traffic crawled. Brake lights stretched ahead like a red vein through the city. He turned on the radio, then turned it off again when the announcer's voice grated on him. Silence felt easier to manage. At a stoplight, he watched a man on the corner argue with no one, his hands carving shapes in the air. A gust of wind sent a newspaper skittering across the asphalt, headlines unreadable as it tumbled. The office tower rose ahead of him, a slab of steel and tinted windows reflecting the pale morning sky. Jackson parked, rode the elevator up with 3 other men in suits, and stepped onto the 24th floor. The air smelled faintly of carpet cleaner and burnt coffee. "Morning, Jack," someone said as he passed. "Morning," he replied automatically. His desk sat near the windows, overlooking the river. He set his briefcase down, powered on his computer, and scanned the inbox that had already begun to fill again. Reports, forecasts, requests marked urgent that would be forgotten by tomorrow. He answered what he could, flagged the rest, and prepared for the meeting. The conference room was glass-walled and too bright. 8 people sat around the table when he arrived, laptops open, expressions carefully neutral. Jackson took his seat at the head without comment. The meeting unfolded as they always did. Numbers presented, projections debated, risks acknowledged, and then smoothed over with language that made them sound manageable. Jackson spoke when required, his voice steady, his points concise. He watched himself perform from a distance, as if someone else were wearing his face. At one point, a junior analyst stumbled over a question. The room went quiet. Jackson waited, then offered a correction that was firm but not unkind. The analyst nodded, relief plain on his face. "Well handled," one of the partners said later, as they filed out. Jackson nodded. Praise slid off him without leaving a mark. By noon, he realized he hadn't felt anything all morning. No irritation, no satisfaction, just a flat, uninterrupted stretch of time. He ate lunch at his desk, a turkey sandwich, apple slices, a bottle of water, and stared out at the river while he chewed. Sunlight glinted off the surface, broken by the slow passage of barges. It looked peaceful from this height, distant and untouchable. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother, asking if he'd be coming by this weekend. He stared at it for a long moment before typing a vague response about being busy. He sent it, then immediately felt a dull pressure behind his eyes, as if something were trying to push its way out and failing. The afternoon dragged. A client call ran long. An email chain devolved into a polite argument that solved nothing. By 4:30, a headache had begun to form, a low throb at the base of his skull. He rolled his shoulders, stood, and walked to the break room for more coffee. The lights flickered as he poured it. Just once, a brief stutter, like a skipped frame in a video. He paused, cup in hand, listening. The hum of the refrigerator continued. Someone laughed down the hall. Nothing else seemed out of place. He told himself it was nothing. Back at his desk, the headache intensified. Words on the screen blurred slightly, then snapped back into focus. He blinked, frowned, and rubbed his temples. The air felt thick, heavier than before, as if the building had sunk a few inches into the earth. At 5:30, he shut down his computer and gathered his things. The elevator ride down felt longer than usual. As the doors closed, the lights overhead dimmed, then brightened again. Jackson felt a sudden, sharp sense of vertigo, like the floor had dropped away beneath him for half a second. He grabbed the handrail until the sensation passed. Outside, the sky had taken on a strange hue, not quite evening, not quite storm. Clouds hung low and unmoving, their undersides bruised purple and gray. The air smelled metallic, like rain that hadn't fallen yet. Jackson walked faster, unsettled without quite knowing why. Traffic was worse than usual. He sat in his car, boxed in on all sides, the city pressing close. His headache spiked, pain flaring behind his eyes. The radio crackled on without him touching it, static bleeding into a distorted echo of music. He turned it off sharply. The car in front of him lurched forward, then stopped. Jackson's foot moved automatically between pedals. Sweat beaded at the back of his neck. The pressure in his head was building now, accompanied by a faint ringing in his ears. Streetlights flickered on one by one. As he passed under them, their glow seemed to stretch, trailing after the car like smeared paint. He blinked hard, heart beginning to race. "This isn't real," he muttered, though he wasn't sure what he meant by it. By the time he reached his garage, his hands were trembling. He parked, sat for a moment with the engine off, and tried to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The ringing subsided slightly, but the heaviness remained, a weight pressing down from above and up from below at the same time. The elevator ride up was silent. No music, no floor indicator lights, just the soft grind of cables and the feeling of being watched, though he was alone. When the doors opened, the hallway lights buzzed faintly, their glow uneven. His apartment door resisted for a split second before opening, as if the frame had warped. Inside, the air felt cold, despite the thermostat reading a comfortable temperature. The ceiling fan was off. The room was too quiet. Jackson set his briefcase down and loosened his tie. The pressure in his head surged, sharp enough to make him wince. His vision dimmed at the edges, tunneling inward. He staggered, catching himself on the back of the couch. The lights flickered again, longer this time. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to stretch, bending at angles that didn't match the geometry of the walls. The hum of the city outside faded, replaced by a low, distant sound that reminded him of wind moving through a vast, empty space. Gravity shifted. Not enough to send him flying, but enough that his stomach lurched, the floor tilting beneath his feet like the deck of a ship. He dropped to one knee, palm pressed flat against the carpet. It felt wrong under his hand, too rough, too soft, as if it couldn't decide what it was. "Okay," he said aloud, his voice sounding thin and far away. "Okay." The air grew dense, pressing in on him from all sides. His ears popped painfully. The distant wind sound deepened, layered now with something else. A rhythm, slow and deliberate, like a massive heartbeat echoing through stone. The walls rippled. Jackson squeezed his eyes shut, then opened them again, hoping to find the room restored to normal. Instead, the far wall seemed farther away than it should have been, the space between stretching like taffy, the framed print warped, its straight lines bowing outward. His phone buzzed in his pocket. The sudden vibration made him flinch. He fumbled it out, hands clumsy, and looked at the screen. No signal, no notifications, just the time, flashing and unstable, numbers cycling too fast to read. The pressure in his chest tightened, breath coming shallow now. He felt as if something were pulling at him, not physically, but along some deeper axis he had never known existed. Memories surfaced unbidden. Late nights in the office, deals closed, deals lost, the hollow satisfaction of winning at a game he no longer believed in. They slid past him, one after another, stripped of emotion, like exhibits in a case he was done prosecuting. The wind, sound rose to a roar. Light flared, white and searing, bleeding through the apartment as if the walls had turned translucent. Jackson cried out. The sound swallowed instantly. His body felt both weightless and impossibly heavy, every nerve screaming as if stretched too far. For a moment, an eternity, there was nothing but sensation, pressure, heat, cold, the sense of falling without moving. Then even that began to tear apart. Reality itself, unraveling thread by thread around him. And Jackson Kong, businessman, 30 years old, was pulled toward something vast and unseen, the last fragments of his ordinary life breaking away as the world he knew came undone.